Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Agasicles from Gearworks.com and the E2KG Network podcasting channel, here with the premiere issue for the 2019 season of the podcasting network with What's Your Issue? Actually, technically, the 2019 season already premiered with the first episode of It's Another Thing Movies, which we recorded this previous Saturday, covering the Orson Welles film, actually Orson Welles' final film, The Other Side of the Wind, as well as the documentary covering that film, They'll Love Me When I'm Dead. This is the kickoff episode. Sorry, every podcast about comic books, I always get mixed up between constantly saying episodes and issues, because obviously we read issues of comic books, and then I get tongue-tied trying to say episodes of the podcast. So here with me, as always, is my loyal companion, Mr. Stephen Lohr. How you doing, Stephen?
Doing great.
Great. Let's dive right into it. So 2018 kind of went out on a whimper with a relatively small number of books that shipped. 2019, however, got off to a roiling bang with dozens of books being shipped all over the place. I think this week, I think Dynamite, is shipping like even more than it shipped in the first week. So it's pretty crazy. We have a lot of books to go over. We are actually technically covering books that shipped both the 2nd of January as well as I think the 26th of December. We have those in the mix. We structured the agenda. We didn't necessarily overly load it with books that shipped the 26th. We just kind of clumped them in as potential topics to cover in with the books that shipped on the 2nd. So the first book, if you haven't listened to the show before, this is a spoilery comic book review show covering the books that shipped the most recent New Comic Book Day shipping week. So we are not going to shy away from any of the detail in the books. We may choose of our own accord not to reveal certain details, but by and large, what we expect is that you've read the comics at this point and you're here to come and talk or listen to a talk about them in every detail. So we're not going to shy away from any topics in the book. If you're concerned about that, go back and read them and then come back. We generally cover about 6 books in the review segment of the show, which is at the top of the show and leads us off. Then we each discuss the best thing that we read the preceding week and then go into our honorable mentions and finish up the show by letting you know what is on our pull list for the upcoming week so you know what to come back and expect next week. First up in the review segment rundown, and I apologize, I'm going to get through the show as much as I can tonight. I do have a cold that I caught, my wife and I caught from our youngest daughter, so I'm very congested right now, but we will get through as best as we can. First up in the review segment tonight, I am covering Mr. and Miss Marvel number 7, which is unusual because, Stephen, this is really kind of one of your
my book.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Marvel number 7, if you don't know the setup for this, this is the long-awaited by some people culmination of marriage between Gambit and Rogue, a romance which has been going on in the Marvel Universe for some odd, 2 decades between these two characters. And when Kitty Pryde and Colossus's recent marriage didn't go through, Gambit and Rogue took the opportunity to upstage them, basically, and choose to get married. Which, if that ever happens to you in real life, don't get married on the day that your friend's marriage falls apart. Right?
Yeah, that's
it's not a very classy thing to do.
It happened in the CW shows too.
Right. So, Mr. and Mrs. Marvel number 7 was writer Kelly Thompson, artist Oscar Bazaldua, colorist Frank D'Amata, and letterer the great Joe Sabino. So the situation in this is Mojo, if you remember that character, and his wacky crew, whom we know from Longshot lore. So it's always weird to me when one of these comics from my time as a tween ager kind of kicks in. But Mojo and his wacky crew, as far as I remember, got their debut in a Longshot miniseries, which came out in like the mid 1980s, like 1986, when that character was introduced. So they have set the couple up to be part of another one of their elaborate entertainment schemes. The stick with these characters is always that Mojo is responsible for entertainment in his demon dimension or whatever, and so is always capturing heroes trying to kind of put them in kind of like a Running Man style approach to putting heroes in crisis and getting them on camera. He's got a couple of partners in crime. He has the multi-armed Spiral, who's a female character kind of dressed like a samurai, and Major Domo. And then Mojo himself is kind of like a poor man's Jabba the Hutt. So there you go. I had a bit of a nostalgic twinge when I saw these characters pop up, and I was like, oh, it's these guys. At any rate, Mojo is trying to craft his new movie or whatever. At the end of the day, I guess the key thing is it's not really important what Mojo is trying to do. They kind of flip-flop the heroes back and forth from everything from noir detective type story to whatever else. This comic, for me, the story was okay. It just felt a bit flimsy. And in a lot of ways, it makes me feel like strategically, I'm not sure that Marvel really knows what they want to do or accomplish with this comic and putting these two characters together finally in matrimony. It's kind of like, and there have been some high points of this series. Like I really liked when they had Deadpool guest appear, because the dynamic between the three of them was pretty exciting. But I think at the end of the day, this is one of the things that's problematic is when you put a couple together, now you have to make an exciting dynamic that comes out of a triangle, a trio of characters. Otherwise, it's just these two. And, other than, in my mind, other than kind of Lois and Clark, the show that famously, put, Superman kind of permanently together with Lois. But even there was romantic tension for several seasons before the two of them finally tied the knot. But the point is that this, to me, is very akin to what happens on a television show when you finally get the two characters who have been dating married, and after that the show isn't as popular and it's over because you kind of don't know what to do once the guy gets the girl. So it was really hard for me to settle down and accept this comic as just kind of pure dumb fun, because it didn't feel as whimsical as the Deadpool issue, which, again, when we could join the 2 weeks, the Deadpool issue was in this pile of books that I read. Scotty Young is writing that one, and even Scotty is writing that a little less silly and comical than he has done some other books in the past. This book just felt a bit like it was trying too much to be both serious and concurrently whimsical, and the tone just felt off to me. The biggest thing that I really liked about the story is I like the nuance with whatever it is that's going on with Spiral, because it feels like she's looking at the couple through a lens of kind of tragic enjoyment, like almost like, if these two heroes can get together, then maybe there's hope, for people who find themselves in strange lanes in life. I don't know, but there's something going on where Spiral doesn't necessarily regard them as prey or as extreme enemies, as she may have in the past. There's some kind of soft spot, it seems like, developing for her, and to which Mojo kind of, maybe he picks up on that and kind of threatens her with some, extreme treatment if she doesn't go along with the plan. But at any rate, the story was fine enough, but it just didn't grab me as having a huge potential to go anywhere, from there, despite the nostalgia kick that I mentioned before that I got from seeing these characters pop up. On art, I liked what Basil Dua does with pencils, and particularly some of the unique lines that he draws, especially with Rogue. But I wasn't really a huge super fan of the kind of flat color treatment that D'Amata gave. And D'Amata's been in the game a while. This is not new hat for him. I will say Basil Dua did absolutely amazing fight choreography. I really love how they kind of went back. It was almost kind of retro to paint Gambit as this great melee character, where when you go back to his origin, it was more about him with the staff than it was about him flicking the explosive cards around, and they've slowly walked away from that over the last couple decades. So it was really great to see him in a great, just old-fashioned fight scene where he was really the centerpiece. He didn't really lean on Rogue and her strength that much. And then D'Amato does really kick in and show his skill when there's a point in the story where Rogue's powers look like they're going haywire, and it appears as if she's like disintegrated Gambit, and there's some kind of darker passages in there. D'Amato is able to really layer in more shadow, and those feel like it really plays to his strength. At the end of the day, I scored this comic a 7.0. It was an interesting book as we close it, particularly as you close out the book as the book ends. Mojo replaces Gambit with Longshot, and apparently has done some type of wackadoodle spell on Rogue, so she doesn't get that that's not who she's supposed to be with. So it kind of makes it mildly exciting for me to consider what comes next. But at the end of the day, it just didn't excite me that much to where I'm willing to, kind of plan, summarily plan and definitively say that I'm going to pick up the next issue. So I don't know. It felt kind of flat for me overall. Stephen, what did you think about this issue?
I have a different opinion. I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it a 7, I guess a 7.5 because I enjoy the humor of the book. I did like the flirty interactions with Gambit and Rogue, and especially when it came to like in the vents, when they was in the air vents and Rogue had her butt up, and Gambit was touching her butt and hitting on her, and she was like getting annoyed about it, but she decided to just kiss him because I don't know, she knows that's how Gambit usually is. She just kind of accepted it. So yeah, I thought it was interesting, and I do like the humor about that with Mojo when he comes to when he talks about that he wants to make a reboot of Moonlighting, which was like an old school TV show. I thought that was hilarious. And it's just funny how I wasn't sure it was Spiral or Domo that was like, I thought you wanted something new. And Mojo was like, oh, it's just I'm giving something new on old favorites. So it's still technically new. So yeah, I just thought it was just, the humor was really good for me, and I enjoyed that. And I did like the action with Rogue and Gambit. It was a really good action scene there, and I don't think Gambit is dead in the issue. I think that's just a shock factor.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're the main part of your different take is that you did see it as totally on as far as the whimsy of it goes, and maybe that's exactly what you saw. And it was that moonlighting effect and that kind of Remington Steele like effect of like it's kind of an 80s style romance action adventure with the chemistry. Okay, all right, cool. All right. Well, far be it for us to ever say that us having a difference of opinion makes for bad television. So I completely
heard about the TV show.
Right.
But I've heard things about it from my parents.
Right. Okay. So why don't you talk to us about Injustice versus Masters of the Universe #6? I'm curious to see this because I actually just finished playing through the main campaign in the first Injustice fighting game on PlayStation. So now that I'm a little familiar with how that story unfolds, I'm curious to hear how it is fun in Masters of the Universe.
All right. So yeah. Let me see if I can just. Give me a second. So the creative team for this book is Tim Seeley, and the artist is Freddie Williams II, and the colors is Jerry Caldwell and Andrew Dahlhaus, and the letters is Wes Albert. So yeah, this is the final issue of Injustice versus Masters of the Universe, which is basically He-Man. And in this issue is you see it first starts off with Superman and He-Man talking to each other because Superman wants to reboot the universe. Like he wants to undo what he wants to try to undo killing the Joker. And and as that's going on, there's also a fight with the masters, the people from the Masters of the Universe, the He-Man universe, and the rest of the Injustice characters like Batman, Flash, everybody else that's in the good side of Injustice. Um, so yeah, they're fighting their war. They're trying to finish off the battle after Darkseid and Skeletor has gotten killed in that battle, and they fighting the minions that were still alive in the battle. So, so yeah, Superman and He-Man just they're talking to each other, and Superman decides to go like in the past. He uses the He-Man sword and he uses some orb from the mother box from Darkseid, and he combines them and he's able to go to the past, and he wants to stop Superman, stop him from killing the Joker. But he realizes that he can't do that because he sees that he sees infinite timelines in the with the weapons, and he sees that no matter what he does, Lois Lane and his son still ends up dead. Like if he doesn't kill a Joker, there's supposed to be a car accident that kills Lois Lane and I guess the son. I'm not sure it's to be John Kent, but I think that's what it's technically supposed to be. So yeah, they they the Superman gets angry and he just he gets fed up that he can't change what's happened to the fate of his wife and son. So he tries to attack He-Man, but He-Man gets transported to like some he gets transported to the wizard, the Shazam wizard, and he he talks to him about Billy Batson, how much of a great hero he was, and Superman had killed him, and it's like he's chosen to wield his power and see what he can do to stop Superman from doing what he's gonna do. And he gives him the Shazam powers, and he's back to where Superman is. It's like like it flashes back to him being where Superman is, and then He-Man he turns to Shazam and he sees that Superman is going through so much emotions. He felt like it's best that I decided to kill Superman so he could finally be with his family, because there's no other ways for him to be with his family. So he decides to kill off Superman, and Superman dies and ends up going with his wife and son in heaven, I guess. So yeah, so He-Man returns to attorney, and he sees that the fight is already over. The war with the remaining bad guys who worked for Skeletor and Darkseid. So they take them down, and uh so yeah, Batman, Bruce Wayne asks He-Man where is Superman, and they said that He-Man lies to him. He says that the Death Racer decides to kill Superman when he technically killed Superman, but he didn't want to tell him that. So he said that the Death Racer killed Superman because he was disrupting time, which usually does happen with it. I remember in the Flash of the CW show that happened, and Barry tries to change time. So yeah, so they do, yeah, so they go back to their original worlds, and there's also, they come up with deals like, excuse me, yeah, He-Man and Batman decide to make a prison for Wonder Woman and Evelyn, one of the He-Man characters. Yeah, because they put Wonder Woman and Evelyn in the same prison, because Wonder Woman had killed Damian in the previous issues, and she has to be through her time in prison, and they put other people in the same prison, and Batman decides to make a new Justice League with a whole bunch of heroes, like there's like Supergirl and Kyle Reiner's in there, and some other, like Green Arrow. It's like, and Harley Quinn. There's like a whole bunch of new Justice League members, and so yeah, and then there's it's like a fast forward like to the future scene where I think it's Horndak, yeah, another He-Man villain. He teams up with a whole bunch of DC and He-Man villains and calls them some type of, he makes his own, like, kind of like Green Lantern Corp kind of team, and they're gonna fight Eternia and Earth. I guess that's supposed to be like, if there's another storyline, if there's a part 2, I think that's where the story would go. And yeah, so the story ends there. That's how that's how the story ends. I did enjoy this issue a lot. I would give it a 8.0 because I did like the moments where He-Man and Superman were trying to come up with what to do. Like He-Man understood what Superman was going through, and he was allowing him to go back in time and see if he can undo what he wants to do, because Superman did a lot of wrong and he wants to undo all those mistakes, but he came to realize he can't undo those mistakes because the same thing is always going to happen. And I did like that He-Man decided, I guess, killing him off in a good way, I guess, in a way of him being with his family, because that's the only way it brings him happiness, instead of being angry all the time and never going his way. So that's the only way he can achieve it, happiness. And
go ahead.
But yeah, so yeah, I thought that was interesting. I did like the interactions with Shazam, the Wizard, and He-Man talking there. They had some good interactions. Talk about Billy Batson and what happened in Justice. So it was a pretty good storyline. I did like the action as well with the rest of the Justice League and the Masters Universe working together to fight the rest of the villains. And I'm glad. I did like that the people who were working for Darkseid and Skeletor, even though after Darkseid and Skeletor got killed because they fought each other and killed each other, and some reason the villains still kept fighting. They didn't stop the fight. So I thought that was interesting, because usually when their main boss ends up getting killed, they stop the fight, but they kept going, which I thought that was interesting.
Okay, cool. So what did you score this book in the end?
I gave it 8.0.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I just wish that this was canon, but I don't think it's gonna be canon to the video games.
Right. Right. Anything else that you want to cover on Injustice versus Masters of the Universe #6?
No, I don't think I'm good with that. I'm done with
Okay.
that one.
All right. Next comic in the review segment is Titans #32, obviously published by DC. Interesting, as you mentioned, Kyle Rayner appearing in the last issue. And this story continues this advent of Kyle Rayner having joined the Titans. And this issue was kind of weird to me because it was more preamble into the new arc, which is, I guess, will now officially be called Last Rites. This was Last Rites #1. Writer Dan Abnett, artist Clayton Henry, colors by Marcelo Maiolo, and letters by the great Dave Sharp. So as I mentioned, you have Beast Boy sitting in the chair, getting the exorcist treatment, speaking in tongues, relaying information as it is being relayed through him by the villain of the story, which is revealed to be Mother Blood, who I wasn't exactly positive because they didn't come right out and say it, but I guess she is part of the cult that Brother Blood would have started. I don't know that for certain, but it seems like that's what it would be. There is a male leader of this cult depicted for the first half or so of the story until Mother Blood either witnesses his death or maybe she kills him. I can't remember exactly which. But then she takes over the cult of the Red, which we saw speaking through Beast Boy last issue, and that continues this issue. Except this issue, we're definitively given a view of her speaking, and we know that it's her using Beast Boy as a puppet. So unfortunately, at the end of the day, with the way this makes me feel, not a lot happens in this issue, right? In the current timeline. It kind of ends at the exact same point that the last issue of Titans did, except this one is told kind of from the villain perspective. So at the end of the day, somewhere on Earth or some one of the multiverses that is not technically in the multiverse, is where the Titans have to, is where the Titans have to go, and there's more allusion to that in this issue. On art, Clayton Henry does a great job here, but unfortunately, there's just not a lot of story to tell, so there's not a lot for him to really do. He does do a great job emoting with his with the faces when he's in the portrait view. And those particular scenes were pretty much pretty incredible. Clayton Henry probably does one of the best jobs of drawing expressions on faces in comics. But at the end of the day, I wound up scoring this issue a 6.5 out of 10. It's fine, but it's a bridge issue, and what kind of bothers me with it, again, strategically, from an architectural perspective in laying the story out, we've had 2 bridge issues now. We had the Titans returning home and getting Kyle Rayner to the point where he says he's going to join the team, and kind of the denouement of the Drowned Earth part that the Titans played, and their return from exile and their reintegration into the League with Donna Troy reporting up through Batman. This issue is another bridge issue where the story proper doesn't really get started, but it's just a bunch of kind of administrivia and background story on the villain, which to me felt almost a little too detailed. Like, if Mother Blood is some character that we're going to see, many, many, many times over, then okay, spend that much time on telling her story in this issue. But other than that, I kind of question the sheer number of pages allocated to tell her story. So it's just kind of weird. So again, it's a bridge issue. For that reason, I almost hesitate to comment on it too much. There are times that I wish you could take these bridge issues kind of out and not talk about them from the aspect of assigning them a score, just give them a pass. But at the end of the day, they're part of the content, and I feel like we're kind of obligated to talk about them in that way. But kind of the same thing as the Mr. and Mrs. X thing. Like, there was a pretty decent story here. Architecturally, I get how you have to lay this type of an issue out in the whole roadmap, but at the end of the day, it didn't really do a lot for me. But it also didn't, like I said, it's not, like I've said several times in the past, there is art that actually, are comics that actually irritate me when I read them in my stack, and I'm like, oh, man, that was really a waste of my time. I wish I hadn't bothered with that issue. I didn't feel that way about this issue. Steven, did you also read Titans number 32?
Yeah, I read this issue. I gave it a 7.5. I really enjoyed the origin of Mother Blood. I'm glad I got to know about how she became Mother Blood and why, and it was interesting to see that how that happened and how she just was she wasn't convinced about Jason's blood religion. I mean Brother Blood's religion, but it's Brother Blood. Yes, Jason Blood. What is it? Yeah, she wasn't convinced at first, and then somehow once he took her to that forest with the red powers at, and somehow she was convinced when she got the power of Brother Blood, and I thought that was interesting how she got there at that point. So yeah, I did enjoy this issue because of the origin of the villain. That's pretty much it.
Okay, very good. And not to say that I didn't not enjoy the issue. It's just it didn't, really grab me. So the next comic that we're going to talk about in the review segment is Superior Spider-Man number 1. So this is one of the issues that would have actually come out on or about the 26th of December. Talent on it is story written by Christos Gage, pencils Mike Hawthorne, inks by Wade von Graubadger, colors by Jordi Belair, and letters by Clayton Cowles. One thing I will say is, I've now been trained by Marvel, so that when I see Jordi Belair on colors, that tells me that is a comic that I need to pay attention to, because they wouldn't have allocated her to that if the story wasn't important. This is the take on Otto Octavius now having found a new body, after previously having inherited Peter Parker for some number of years, and then Peter Parker's persona reasserting itself, and therefore Otto Octavius' mind having to go find some other place to live. He does so, and now this is an issue on the other side of Spider-Geddon, where we get an opportunity to see Otto Octavius perform in his own ongoing series, where hopefully he won't suffer from the curse of, the simple fact that comic book fans don't consume villain-centric ongoings in large numbers. So one of the things I really like in this comic is Mike Hawthorne's pencils really give it the feel of a 1970s. I'm
gonna go make a quick run to the restroom.
Yeah. I'll keep riffing while you're doing that. I really like Mike Hawthorne's pencils in this issue, because particularly in the opening pages where he is fighting, I don't know who this guy is, it's like Stilt Man or whatever. It's really kind of a rube of or it was really kind of a joke of a comic book villain, and Superior Spider-Man kind of handles him very soundly. But here we get some insight into Otto Octavius, and particularly how he views himself in his life, having experienced abuse at the hands of his father, and then falling in love with Maria, who was Peter Parker's assistant in the company that he started, and then going back to teach at a college. I think this is out in Seattle or San Francisco. It's somewhere out on the West Coast. And Maria discovering him, despite the fact that he's in a body that looks nothing like Otto Octavius, her just being able to recognize him from his persona. And then at the end, Terrax the Taker, I guess one of the heralds. I don't know if this guy is one of the heralds of Galactus. I'm sure there's a character I probably should be familiar with, but I'm just not. Arrives, and Maria is really giving Octavius a very hard time, for what he did to her, and is intending to turn him into the police. But at the end of the day, when Terrax shows up, she agrees to go ahead and let him go. At the end of the day, I scored this issue an 8.0 out of 10. It's really well written, and after seeing Christos Gage, and my feeling was I didn't feel like his work on Spider-Geddon was the best, and this was kind of a thing that I felt I saw with Charles Soule when he wrote Death of Wolverine, that I felt that wasn't his best work, and I felt like there was a very heavy-handed editorial feel to it, maybe because it was an event and editorial was trying to kind of force him through a certain rubric. It's the same way that I felt about Christos Gage when he was writing Spider-Geddon. This feels like Christos is a little more free and a little more willing the story and where it's headed than I felt than when he was writing Spider-Geddon. So Steven, I know you didn't hear all of my riff on Superior Spider-Man, but did you read this issue?
Yeah, I did read this issue. I thought it was okay. I gave it a 7.5.
Okay.
It's just, I didn't like the art that much, and I kind of knew that Dr. Octavius's girlfriend was gonna figure out that that's basically Dr. Octopus. Yeah, I kind of figured she was gonna figure out that was Otto, and that was pretty much it. They didn't really, not much happens besides that, I think.
Okay, so why don't you talk to us about the Silencer number 12?
The Silencer number 12 is let me see, check the creative team. So yeah, the creative team is Jack Hubert and Dan Abnett as the writers, and the think the artist was Tom, I think it was Tom Durnick, and the colorist is Mike Spicer, and the letters is Tom Lapipino, whatever his name is. I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah. Anyway, the story, it starts off with Tala al Ghul and her Leviathan, the people that work for Leviathan bowing down to her after she comes with a deal that she's not gonna kill them if they continue to work for her, for something. And Silencer is the only one that disagrees with working for Tala al Ghul, and she ends up fighting Tala al Ghul and everybody Leviathan, so everybody's fighting against her. She's just by herself, and she tries her best to fight Tala al Ghul, and Tala al Ghul takes her down, and she doesn't kill her, but she handicaps her, I guess, by just stabbing her, and Tala al Ghul asks her if you join me to if you decide to join the Leviathan, that she would not kill her, and she will also provide, I guess, safety for the family. Like, if she will not kill her son and husband, and she'll keep them safe. And she decides to work for her, and Silencer does end up working for her, and there's also in the in the issue, Silencer's husband, I think. I'm not sure if it's a husband or boyfriend, but yeah, they're trying to they're wondering where the hell did Honor Guest went, the Silencer, and the I guess the FBI agent decides to put him in a room and they talk to each other and say if the FBI agent, she asks him if he knows anything about his wife, and he I don't know, for some reason he freezes and tries to think back to if he knows about his wife's past or anything about her that they can find information and see where she's went. And he honestly didn't know anything about his wife. He couldn't think of where she comes from or who her parents are. Yeah, he didn't know anything about her, and he felt shocked. And the FBI thought that he was traumatized, but he said no, he's not traumatized. He's actually just in shock that he doesn't know anything about his wife. And his son tells him that it's okay that he doesn't know anything about his mom, and I guess they try to make him feel better, but yeah, they by the end of the issue, even though Talo Ghul and the Silencer came with an agreement to work together, and she as they agreed to work with each other, the Silencer, Talo Ghul ends up still stabbing the Silencer again and knock her out the window, and that's how the story ends. And I really didn't like this issue that much. I would give it like a 6.0 because I'm not clearly convinced that I don't like the idea of the Silencer's husband not knowing anything about his wife's past. I mean, if he doesn't know anything about her, why is she fighting for him and her son? Why does she have so much love for them if they know nothing about each other? It's that's not how love works, but they should, it'd be understanding if he knows a fake past of her, but he doesn't know anything, which is that's just kind of stupid. I would understand if the Silencer came with a fake past, so he has an idea of who she is, even though it's not really her. He has some type of idea he needs some type of information to fall in love with somebody. That doesn't make any sense that you just magically fall in love with somebody and have a child without knowing anything. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, the child was his from a previous marriage, wasn't it? I don't think that's her biological.
Well, I don't know, because she met the guy and she didn't have a son. There was an issue where she met the guy, and at the time she was in Gotham City working for Talo Ghul to hunt Batman.
Yeah. And I read that. I thought that was his son from a previous marriage. But at any rate, it's. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it just seems weird. I thought he at least knows something of her, and it just bothers me that he doesn't know anything of her. And it's just weird how Talo Ghul decides to not kill anyone in the Leviathan, and she's like, "Oh, I'll give you extra protection." You decide to continue work for me, and everybody decides to comply and works for her. And it's wasn't that the same deal as before? Why are you giving the same type of deal?
Right.
It's just a really poorly done issue. I didn't like it. The art was great, but the story was pretty bad.
Okay. So why don't you talk to us about something you did like in The Walking Dead number 187?
So yeah, The Walking Dead, Um, just yeah, The Walking Dead is number 187 is is the creative team is Robert Kirkman is the writer, Charlie Aller is the artist, the inker is Steph Guano, and the colorist is Cliff Ratburn, and um the letterist is Russ Toulton. So yeah, this issue is still continuing the Commonwealth with you see how the I think the governor of Commonwealth, she just Milton, she decides to make a speech where of what happened in the office with Rick, Michonne, and Dwight, where Dwight tried to kill her and Rick saved her life and he shot Dwight, and yeah so yeah, she tells her people in the Commonwealth that that um Dwight ended up getting killed, and she was like trying to tell that everyone that Rick saved her life, and she doesn't want any um any problems or beef with Rick's people. Don't She doesn't want her people to start any trouble just because Dwight tried to kill her, and so like do not let anything affect the changes that's going on in Commonwealth, to not act upon it. Just let everything go back to the way it was. And I guess Rick and Milton are going to try to come up with a situation to make the Commonwealth better, I guess. So yeah, and and during they as this, they cut off the speech where Rick is talking. They didn't. I mean, he does talk for a little bit, but then they cut off to other scenes where they have the people who work for Dwight. They haven't heard from Dwight, and they're thinking that they should go to the Commonwealth and see what happened to Dwight, because so far is only Michonne and Rick and the people from Commonwealth knows what happens to Dwight, not the people that's back in Alexandria, the people that work with Dwight, and the people that work for Rick, and I mean that live in Rick's town, Alexandria. And there's also a scene with Mercer and Princess. They're talking to each other, and Princess decides to break off the relationship, and she wants to get away because she feels that the dramas that's going on in Commonwealth is going to get worse. And she says she knows how to deal with this because her past with her parents had the same ended up in the same way, that she never had a good family background, and she was yeah, so she just rather be alone and not deal with what's gonna go on here. She doesn't want to get killed, so she decides to leave and break up with Mercer. And then they cut off to a scene with Sophia talking to her new dates, Joshua, and they talk about their Maggie and his mother, and then they have Carl talking with his girlfriend and how he loves her a lot because he he was like a monster, and she was able to relate to him because she also was like a monster, and she didn't understand that. She took it as a bad thing, and she walks out. And later on in the issue, they decide to talk again, and he was talking about it in a way like that they can relate to each other. Like he wouldn't accept his monsterness if she wasn't the way that she was, their ways in relating to each other. So, then there's more talk with, Michonne and Rick. The restaurant, they just try to talk about what happened with Dwight and see what was the right thing to do, and Michonne makes Rick realize that it was okay for him to kill Dwight. It was gonna happen no matter what. And then Maggie decides to talk with Aaron and Jesus and a whole bunch of other people to go look for Rick because they haven't heard from him. They thought that he would be back by now with the Commonwealth, and they decided to go. And Carl decides to go as well. And at the end of the issue, Mercer decides to talk with his men, and they said that they don't like what's going on with Commonwealth, and they want to take over Milton's spot. He wants to take over Commonwealth. He wants to be the leader. And apparently one of the people that work for Milton, I think his name's Lance, he comes in and hears what Mercer was talking about, and the issue ends there. So yeah, I did give this issue a 8.5. I really did enjoy the interactions. There was a lot of character development in here, which is what Robert Kirkman usually does. And I do like what he does with his writing. Like, I know some people don't like that the character development is, points. I know people complain about it in the TV show because they just rather see them attacking zombies, but I prefer characterization more. That's just how I am. And, I see a lot of characterization goes on in this issue, and it was interesting to see the characters interact. And I did like the conversations with Carl and his girlfriend, and how they were able to use monster as a symbolism and not look at it as a bad thing, look at it as a positive. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, I really did like this issue a lot. It was pretty good.
Well, that's a good set of commentary on your impressions of the book. I differed with you. I rated the book a 6.5. Now, again, for me, it was a drop-in issue. The problem I had with it is I felt like the first half of the book didn't really... I felt like that didn't have a lot of character development in it. But I felt like in the second half of the book, where you get into like the sit-down meeting the second sit-down meeting really between Rick and Michonne, it's the second across the continuity of the two books. I felt that started to kind of open up the aperture on things that I'm accustomed to seeing from Kirkman. I felt the scene interludes between Carl and I forget what his girlfriend's name is.
Yeah, I forgot her name too.
Right. Definitely felt more poignant in the second half of the book. So like I said, I wound up rating it a 6.5 out of 8.5. That pretty much does it for us for the reviews segment of the show. Steven, talk to me about what was the best thing that you read in comics last week.
The best thing I read was, it was Detective Comics 995. Just, yeah, so, the creative team was, Peter J. Tomasi. It's a writer. The artist is Doug Mankey. The inker is Jane Mendeza, and the colorist is David Barron, and the letters is Rob Lay. So yeah, I put this book of the issue of the week because it gets I'll explain the story. The Batman is trying to save Leslie Tompkins from the Joker toxin, and he brings her to Alfred, and they're trying to race to cure her, and none of the antidotes is working, and it comes to a time where she ends up passing. And before she did pass, Bruce Wayne, like, he goes really crazy and uh, tries his best to, revive her, and it didn't work. He just was not giving up, and he was very stubborn about it. And she ends up dying, and, they go through some emotional moments with Alfred and Batman. So, Alfred decides to, take a break, and he goes upstairs to rest himself. And, for some, like some Zorro type of, some kind of Zorro suit, decides to, like, comes in and tries to attack Alfred, and Batman heard the things going on upstairs. He decides to, run upstairs, and he sees that Alfred is on the floor with, like, blood on his chest. And the Zorro villain, like, he quickly leaves, and because I think he noticed that Batman heard the action that's going on, so he decides to leave, and Batman decides to, patch Alfred up. Then he, goes to Jeremiah Arkham. He goes to an Arkham Asylum. He goes to talk to him and say he wants to conduct interviews with all the villains in Arkham Asylum and see who just tried to kill Leslie Tompkins and Alfred, because he doesn't know who put this Joker toxin in her, and he doesn't know the person who tried to kill Alfred. He doesn't have any idea who's been planning all this, and he's gonna go try to figure out what these villains. And I gave this issue like a 9.5. I really did like Batman not giving up to revive Leslie Tompkins. He was really out of it, and I like the one thing I do admire about Batman is that he's not willing to give up. He's always trying his hardest to get what he wants, and I saw that here. He was very emotional, and he actually did care for Leslie Tompkins. He viewed her as like a mother figure that he didn't get to have with his mother, and I thought that was interesting, and I like that. And I did like the nice tender moments with Alfred too, and Alfred trying to make Bruce Wayne feel better about Leslie Tompkins' death and tell her he has to let her go because there's no other way to save her, and we did everything that we could. And I do enjoy that. It was pretty well done. And I also thought that it's interesting that you get to see some villain that's dressed up like Zorro, because it comes full circle that I guess, since we're reaching the comics 1000 and Batman's origin story had, Batman, when he was a little kid, Bruce Wayne was a little kid, he went to go see Zorro. That was his movie. That's like his favorite hero, and that's what character he looks up to. And that's the idea where Batman came from. Like, there's some Zorro influence in there. So yeah, I thought that was interesting for it to come full circle on Zorro. So I really did like this issue a lot, and I don't know. I just hope that they reference in other books that Leslie Tompkins had died, because I don't like it where things go on in one book and for some reason she's alive in another book and no one even cares that she died in one book. I just hope that other books follow suit on the character's death. And yeah, I just hope that this death is actually counts. I don't want to see evaporate in like the next another Batman book, because it it was so very shocking for her Leslie Thompson to get killed in this issue. I wasn't expecting that, and I noticed there was like we did see Leslie Tompkins in the Batman Annual #3, so it's kind of, I guess it came into place when we saw her died in Detective Comics. I think it came naturally fitting, even though we were supposed to get the issue earlier in the summer. I thought that was interesting. They came in time.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was an issue that I really liked as well, and I normally am a big Detective Comics fan when it's done, in my mind, right, and it's thematically different from what's going on in the Batman core comic. As of late, I have been reading a lot of Batman, and I was kind of very surprised by things that went on in Detective Comics. I was surprised, as you mentioned, that after having just seen like a great portrayal of Leslie Tompkins in the Batman Annual, which would have made you think like maybe they're poisoning this character to be seen more frequently in the regular comic, and so we need to do a lot of her backstory and everything. But so it's a very strange drumbeat for me to blow her up like that in the Annual and then take that chess piece off the board in this issue. So, but overall, I liked it. I'm interested to see where Detective Comics goes over the next few issues. For me, and I probably mentioned it, I can't remember. So, like I said, I rated Detective Comics number 995 and 8.0 on my end. The thing that I picked for the best thing that I read last week was Immortal Hulk number 11. Al Ewing and Joe Bennett continue to be on a tear as far as I'm concerned. I know that this is not a comic that's for everyone. However, I think it's a comic that is a worthwhile read for people who are fans of the medium. Ewing continues to kind of pick a lot of philosophical things apart in the nature of man and his character and his ethics. And I find it very interesting. In this issue, we get more of the I can't remember her name, but I guess McGee. This is the African American female that they have had take on the McGee name, which you know from the 1980s TV show Mr. McGee, and the famous line, "Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." So she winds up being with the Hulk in hell. Having been in the vicinity of him when he fought the Absorbing Man last issue, and they encounter all sorts of weird renders of people that they know from their lives. And at the end, what it appears is that Bruce Banner has actually been in hell this whole time, and his father is there with him. And it's the Hulk who somehow has survived and has not been sent to serve out penance in hell or whatever. They can't say exactly what's going on, but I thought this issue was really great. Joe Bennett continues to do really awesome creature work. It's oftentimes shocking with the things that he renders on screen. I know that it's a challenge for him, and I'm sure I can imagine that the discussion between he and Al Ewing are, when he gets the script from Ewing, is like, Ewing, you want me to draw what? Because there's really some really strange photos as you go through this. Great panel work, too, in particular in this issue. Joe Bennett taking a lot of artistic license in how he wanted to present and portray the story. So to me, it was the best thing that I read last week. Stephen, what do you have for honorable mentions? And again, for the listeners, honorable mentions are those books that we read and would have scored an 8.0 or above that were not the best thing that we read last week. So Stephen, take it away.
All right. My honorable mentions is Action Comics 1006, which is a interesting issue with Red Cloud working for Leviathan. She works for Tal Al Ghul apparently, and she works for another higher up. And I think that's interesting that maybe Superman's gonna fight Tal Al Ghul in this, which is interesting. I gave it an 8.5. Batman Beyond number 27 is still continuing. Batman and Robin fighting the Joker in the Beyond universe, and
it is still fighting each other. I gave it an 8.0. Books and Magic is Tim Hunter talking with his principal in the magic school, and they talk about his magic abilities, and then there's a funeral of one of the teachers who passed away, and I thought that was an interesting issue. I gave it an 8.0. Just like Odyssey talks about number 4, it talks about cyborgs. You see how there are people that believe in cyborg and what his world is like, and it was pretty interesting to find out about the prophecy of cyborg, and now they're gonna find out about Azrael's prophecy about why people believe in him. So I gave it an 8.0. And Raven the Dart of Darkness, they're still fighting I forgot, some ghost villains. I know they still continue to fight those ghost villains. Raven Dart of the Darkness number 11, I give it an 8.0. Runaways number 17, I gave it an 8.5. It just deals with the Runaways fighting the Gribbergorm, people that their parents worked for in the previous volumes. And at the end of the issue, Alex betrays the team again, and I thought that was cliche because it happened before and it's happening again. But it did give it a solid. I still like the issue a lot, so I gave it 8.5. Terrifics number 11, I gave it an 8.0 because he gets to learn about the characters, and Mr. Terrific is gonna fight Dr. Dread by himself, and it was interesting to know about each other characters because they go back home and get to be with their people, and that they interact in their lives, and there was some character development there. Wind Soldier number 2, I gave it an 8.5 because you get to learn about the character that that Winter Soldier is fighting. He's fighting a child soldier, and you get to learn about the child soldier's past. That was interesting. And I gave it 8.5. X-Force number 1, I gave it an 8.0 because you get to learn about why young Cable has to work with the X-Force, and there's some terrorists there's something going on in some country, I forgot what it was, that has mutant rights, and the general kills the president and they get blamed for it. So the X-Force and younger Cable had to work together. So I thought that was interesting. So I gave it an 8.0. See, that's it.
Okay, thanks so much for giving us the rundown. For me, my honorable mentions from the last 2 weeks have been Fantastic Four number 5, which was finally the wedding issue between Alicia Masters and Ben Grimm, which I rated an 8.5. Superior Spider-Man number 1, which we talked about before, I rated an 8.0. And Detective Comics number 995, which we also talked about before, which I rated an 8.0. Steven, what are you pulling for next week?
All right, it's quite of a list. So, I'm pulling for next week is Star Wars number 59, Justice League number 15, Green Arrow number 48, Deathstroke number 39. Excuse me. Deathstroke number 39, the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl number 40, Adventures of Super Sons number 6, Domino number 10, Miles Morales Spider-Man number 2, Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider number 4, The Dreamy number 5, Young Justice number 1, Hit Girl number 1, Kick-Ass number 11, Man Without Fear number 2, Captain Marvel number 1, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 1, The Black Order number 3, The Curse of Brimstone number 10, The Unexpected number 8, Suicide Squad Black Files number 3, Archie meets Batman 66 number 6, Fate Dreamside number 4, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder in Hell number 1. All right, that's it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking with Clementine in the chat, who's tuned in to listen in on part of the show. Unfortunately, they were interested in hearing the commentary about The Walking Dead, number 187. But Clementine, hopefully, as soon as we close this video out, it should appear on YouTube, and you can definitely scrub back and listen to that part. I can't give you a time index when it occurred, but I will say it is at the end of our reviews segment, so which is probably right about the 1 hour mark, I want to say. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you go back and listen for that, before we talked about The Walking Dead, we were talking about The Silencer number 12. And then after that, we were talking about Detective Comics number 995. So hopefully that will help you square up and find it. For me, for my pull list this upcoming week, I will be pulling Batman number 62, Justice League number 15, Punisher number 6, Star Wars number 59, Bully Wars number 5 over on Image, as well as Die number 2 also over on Image, Deathstroke number 39, Young Justice number 1, which I'm kind of reading against my better judgment because when it popped up in the randomizer, I was like, this is not in DC continuity. This is kind of Bendis.
Well, Bendis said it is in DC continuity. I don't know how.
I don't
see how it works.
No, I mean in the marketing press in the back of the book, it clearly says it's not in DC continuity.
Because I saw he said on Twitter.
Yeah, well, I think it's its own continuity. My sense of it is this is DC giving him the opportunity to do the same thing that he did with the Ultimate brand in Marvel. So it's kind of the same thing over again. I'll also be pulling The Curse of Brimstone number 10 and Captain Marvel number 1. My regret being that I'm not that Spider-Man Miles Morales number 2 I'm not reading because unfortunately that book did not make it onto my recurring pull list just based on timing. So it should be a pretty exciting week next week. Steven and I are pulling a lot of issues that are the same, and that's always the most exciting part of the show when we're able to go back and forth on particular issues that we have read. But that's going to do it for me. Steven, anything else that you wanted to add to this week's discussion?
No, there's something else.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining in. I apologize we ran a little long tonight. We will be back next week for What's Your Issue, episode number 14, where we will be talking about 6 to 8 of the books that we just talked about. We'll be doing 6 again in the review segment and 2 in our best things that we read last week. And who knows how many books will make it into honorable mentions. Once again, this has been Agasicles from the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. This has been What's Your Issue, episode number 13, going back over the books that shipped the 2nd of January 2019. Like I mentioned, we will be back next week. And if you are watching this on Twitter, please do me a favor and like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this on SoundCloud or Pocket Cast, please feel free to give us a review or give us a star rating to indicate whether or not you enjoyed listening to the show. And if you have any direct feedback, probably the best thing to do is to shoot that back to us on Twitter at E2KG Network. So thanks so much again for joining in. That's going to do it for us for tonight. Until next time, take care of you, and good night.